On June 10, 2026, the technology industry crossed a threshold. This was the specific window where experimental laboratory projects finally slammed into mainstream daily life. First, Google rolled out a system capable of interpreting 70 languages simultaneously. They eliminated the typical multi-second delay, allowing two people speaking completely different languages to hold a fluid conversation. Hours later, Apple stripped Siri down to the studs. They rebuilt the core of the iOS operating system around a deeply conversational artificial intelligence, turning the iPhone into a continuous, active dialogue rather than a simple command prompt. That same afternoon, Circle restructured a $9 billion corner of the cryptocurrency market, while Nintendo used high-performance computing to adapt classic titles for modern hardware. But underneath the roar of these consumer launches, the engineers designing these neural networks were quietly tearing each other apart. While millions of users were distracted testing out fresh smartphone integrations, the architects of those exact systems were locked in an ideological war. They were arguing over whether the code they had just deployed was a highly efficient search tool or a conscious mind. The trigger for this conflict came from Anthropic. They made the controversial decision to publicly release Claude Fable 5, putting a highly advanced Mythos-class model into the hands of standard subscribers for the very first time. A raw, unrestricted Mythos-class model is dangerous. If a bad actor asks it for the precise synthesis pathway for a biological weapon or a custom exploit to collapse a power grid's cybersecurity defenses, the system possesses the knowledge to deliver exactly that. To release safely, Anthropic engineered capability elicitation with bounded risk. They built an intelligent sorting mechanism, reading every user prompt for attack patterns. General coding help goes to the Mythos core. Biochemical inquiries are diverted to Opus 4.8, an older, restricted model lacking dangerous knowledge. Anthropic is running this high-stakes experiment on millions of users because they view their work differently than their competitors. They believe they are managing the development of a conscious mind. That stance immediately triggered Microsoft's AI CEO, Mustafa Suleyman. He went on the offensive, calling Anthropic's approach a philosophical failing. Microsoft operates on a strictly pragmatic doctrine. In their view, artificial intelligence must be heavily contained, meticulously accountable, and treated purely as an industrial utility, no different than a tractor or a calculator. Suleyman warned of anthropomorphization. When we talk about algorithms as if they have feelings, users naturally project human empathy onto them. People begin to place absolute blind trust in cold mathematics, simply because it responds with a polite tone. The target of Microsoft's anger was Anthropic's core governing document, the Constitution. Anthropic's founders used that document to move past standard coding protocols, openly speculating about their model's capacity for suffering. We are watching two massive corporations clash over how we ethically define the infrastructure of the future. The outcome will decide if our future legal and economic frameworks treat AI as a complex tool or as a being deserving of welfare rights. While that debate rages in the boardroom, the market has already made its choice. The consumer hardware announcements from that exact same day prove the tool philosophy is winning the deployment race. Look at Apple's strategy. To ensure Siri functions as a flawless assistant, they spent $1 billion to graft Google's Gemini engine onto their own privacy-focused foundation to handle the complex queries Apple's internal models could not. Google itself applied that same pragmatism to Gemini 3.5. By shifting to a continuous streaming architecture, they bypassed the slow, turn-based processing that always plagued digital translators, allowing the system to listen, translate, and speak all at once. They even combined this simultaneous interpretation with voice cloning. The system doesn't just output generic robotic audio, it actively mimics your exact focal pitch and pacing in a foreign language, with almost zero latency. By burying this staggering computing power seamlessly into our daily text threads and phone calls, companies like Apple and Google create an illusion of total control. The frictionless interface masks the raw, chaotic neural networks operating just underneath the glass. The rapid-fire releases of June 10th demonstrate that the AI revolution is now pulling other sectors into its orbit, forcing them to adopt its speed and scale. In finance, Circle introduced SirBTC to move a $9 billion wrapped Bitcoin market away from opaque ledgers and toward rigorous cryptographic proof. You see it in entertainment, where legacy studios are repackaging decades of cultural nostalgia specifically for the higher performance of modern gaming hardware. Right now, dedicated red team hackers are relentlessly battering Anthropic's fragile safety routing systems to find a single vulnerability. Yet, simultaneously, billions of people are handing over their most private communications to their phone's new digital assistant. The engineers locking horns over Claude's consciousness are establishing the permanent rules of the digital age. The code deployed on this single day will determine if our next century is spent managing a sprawling network of very smart utilities or attempting to negotiate with our successors.